Hi, everybody, and welcome to Module 4. We are more than halfway done with the course now. Almost everybody is doing a great job getting everything on time and doing really valuable discussion posts. Um, so thank you for all that. Today we are going to talk about metacognition, which is a process that a successful learner might end up using. Um, this is going from kindergarten to adulthood and even into old age. A person who uses metacognition is going to be a healthier, more successful person in every aspect of their life. So, what is metacognition? So, basically, it is thinking about thinking. This is a way to prep for the future. We're going to talk about how it plays into SDI in a second, but really, it is prep for the future. It's prep for college. It's prep for the job world. It's prep for a changing world. Research shows that humans will change jobs every 5 to 7 years as an adult, right? So having self-direction is a crucial life skill. Being able to adapt on the fly, plan out how you will succeed, how to monitor your success, and how to evaluate what needs changing without a boss telling you to, or a teacher, is crucial for our brains to feel complete and validated and to avoid frustration. So our job is not to just prepare kids, but it's to teach them to prepare themselves, right? To prepare themselves for anything. Um, Unfortunately, that big phrase, I can't, tends to start around grade 3 and 4, sometimes earlier, sometimes later. But we want to turn I can't into how can I. We have to address what causes frustration. And we don't want our students to let frustration be a total block. We want them to be able to work through frustration. A lot of times that keyword grit goes around, how to fight through it and keep going. This happens to kids once the school age gets a little hard and they have a series of failures. They end up telling themselves they cannot do it. Right now I have a 6-month-old baby and I'm watching him fail and then figure it out. He can't roll over, but then he's figuring out if I move my legs like this and I push off against this. Babies don't say I can't do it and then never learn to walk. Babies fail and fail and fail until they get it. And when does this stop for us? This is something teachers really need to think about. Um, Metacognition is a goal. It's a maybe not as it might not be a content goal, but it is still, it could be one of those learning targets, right? To really self-evaluate, to reflect. In our current world, phones and distractions, it makes it harder to be self-reflective, right? Instead, we are comparing ourselves to everybody online, our classmates, our grade level expectations. Comparison is as an enemy of this, right? So instead of saying math tests make me anxious, we want the students to ask, what is it about this math test that makes me anxious, and how can I become less anxious? So it's a crucial step in planning specially designed instruction. It's thinking about thinking, identifying those barriers and thinking about how to overcome them. It's all about how students think and learn. And successful teaching involves us understanding our own thinking, right? The word I've used in every lecture so far is diagnostician. We need to diagnose, and we need to think about how our students are thinking, how we're thinking, and get out of our own little bubble and box. Successful teaching makes us really self-evaluate. So the steps here are: we reflect, we have a critical awareness, so we know what we need and what our shortcomings are and what worked, monitoring our strategies, and then reinventing everything. So once we monitor it and we find what's working or what is not working, we need to reinvent those things. So what does strong metacognition look like? It's thinking through a problem, right? Finding those strategies that work to solve the problem. reflecting on chosen strategies and the outcome of those problems, reflecting our own educational practices, and showing the students ourselves reflecting, right? It helps them reflect and be thoughtful. When we talk it out loud, that is a crucial part of this, is talking it out loud, right? We should show our thinking to students, right? We have to be adaptive. We have to be able to change. We have to, use UDL and come up with different strategies when something didn't work. We can't just say like, it didn't work, try again. This is a big problem with gifted and talented, the gifted and talented program. It's we just throw more of the same at them. Oh, okay, you really have this down, so here's a million more worksheets of the same, exactly the same. No, it needs to be adaptive. It needs to change based on the variables. When we start thinking about the variables, we can start solving the problems. So if you look at page 75, there's a little bit of there's a couple bullet point list here about things, some examples we may need to think about. Like maybe Jeffrey's perception that the directions are always negative. They're always authoritarian. They control his freedoms, right? So as a teacher, we'd be like, oh, am I coming down on this kid too hard? Is my tone something that needs changing? Could always self-reflect, right? A lot of times we're saying, oh, when that student is next to that student, nothing gets done. So maybe we need to create distance in there. We're always doing this. Good teachers do this naturally. But as we get into specially designed instruction, it needs to be done intentionally and with reason. Self-assessment, like we're talking about, is the most important part of this process. We need to observe how we think with students. We need to think out loud. We need to show them our cognitive process, metacognitive process, so it can be a model for them, right? Um, we want to use each other. We want to use the co-teacher, right? Like sometimes me and my co-teacher will literally think out loud, you know, and and the class will kind of be part of that conversation. Like, oh, maybe this was a little tough, or maybe these type of questions were too challenging for, or and not even just too challenging. We just want to share our perspective, what we saw, right? What worked, what didn't work. Um, and on page 77, there is this whole list, which could work for students and teachers. It's a great tool for both. Okay. So we could I think about what I really need to learn before I begin a task. I ask myself questions about the material before I begin. I slow down when I encounter important information. Can't tell you how important that one is. The amount of kids who are just rushing, rushing, rushing. The goal is to get it done, not to think about the assignment, and certainly not to think about thinking. So slowing down, that's something we really, really, really want to focus on. I focus on meaning and the significance of new information. I create my own examples. That's a great one. I had a student who was just bombing every quiz, and he was doing really well in our Kahoots, right? Our Gimkit Kahoots, our Blookits, our all of our online games. So I told him, I want you to make your own. Go make your own Blookit. Go make your own Kahoot. And he did that, and his scores increased like crazy, and he realized it worked for him, and he did it for every assessment in every course, not in every class, not just my class. So it was a really cool self-evaluation. Oh, this is a digital multimedia, it's visual, it just worked for him. So we need to constantly be thinking about this stuff, right? I need to break down things into smaller steps. Um, this strategy isn't working. What can I do differently? Right? We need to constantly be evaluating, and it is also great to look at other people's perspectives. Maybe a classmate who really has a method down. Maybe you pair them with a student who doesn't have things so set, and maybe they can pick up some of that stuff and adapt it to their own learning. And a lot of us are really kind of stuck in our ways as educators. We do things, the same all the time, every year after year. But once we start thinking this way and analyzing ourselves, there's a million ways to teach a lesson. You could see on page 78 and 79 of our text how this teacher will adapt their goals and their order of things to, that still is aligned with the curriculum, but their awareness causes them to develop different ways to teach the lesson, right? The way the curriculum presents and the text features first, there's ways to scan the writing and see what pops out, right? You could make alternate anchor charts. Um, there's alternate solutions to typical education approaches. So the general education strategies work for 80% of the students, but special educators, we need to envision alternatives and different scenarios. Remember, we have a goal, and who cares how they achieve that goal as long as they do achieve that goal. It doesn't matter how we get there. And then special educators need to be able to envision these alternatives. So we need some guiding questions. Again, like I started last week, is what are you doing that is special and what goals are you addressing? So we need to ask and answer questions that help us, right? We need to be constantly reflecting. So what are you doing that's special? What's different from the general education practices? Does it address the child's unique needs? Is it addressing their specific goals? Um, is it related, right? Is it related to an IEP goal? Are we collecting this data? Um, is it instruction or is it a accommodation tool? Is it intentional? Is it designed for something? Is it designed because you found a barrier in a student? Is it designed to bring progress? Right? Is it a growing skill that's going to be transferable? Right? Can they take it to other classes? And then is it building independence? Independence is the ultimate goal. Awareness, self-monitoring leads to opportunities. Um, we need to model this metacognitive strategy, and it'll help them throughout school, life, jobs, whatever. So metacognition is just a broad term that means awareness. It means thinking about thinking. All children, all adults can learn strategies to improve their metacognition. I really believe in singular focused tasks. Our phones, our computers, our screens, our busyness are pulling us in a million directions at once. When we do a singular focused task, it really resets our brain. I don't know if anyone's read this book called Stolen Focus. It came out a couple years ago. It's really just about our whole generation, how we've we've basically our our minds are working in a million different ways, and because of that, we're not getting any information. He compares our current state to trying to get a drink of water out of a fire hose. Right? We have too much coming in that we're not actually taking anything in. Some singular focus activities, even outside the classroom, just personal reading, yoga, exercise, going for a walk. Sometimes I do my best thinking driving or showering because there's nothing else to do. It's so good. That's where my best ideas come. When we slow down, we can think, and we could think about thinking, and we could reflect on what worked and what didn't work. Um, so there's so many situations outside of school where we use metacognition. A healthy, successful person will always evaluate. And then another way we can connect to this, I don't know if everybody is parents. I told you I have a 6-month baby. So how can we as parents encourage metacognition? It's also something as teachers we could train our students' parents to do. It's just asking open-ended questions about their ideas and the reasons they have them. Don't give your children answers. Ask them things that don't have clear answers, that aren't yes or no, right? You can say, what would you do differently next time? Oh, why did that work? Why didn't that work? Oh, what was the reaction to this? Right? We just always need to be engaging and open-ended um, questions that make people think, that make the kids think. There's a lot of ways to improve our metacognition skills, like I mentioned before, that I didn't put in here, is those singular focus activities. I love a singular focus activity. It just settles you down. But as teachers, we are constantly observing and diagnosing. We have a great awareness of our room. We notice relationships in the room. We notice different tasks that are challenging and tasks that are successful. Right? As special education teachers, we're often noting what's not working, but equally important is what is working for that kid, because then we can replicate it. And then professional development strategies, right? It's just so important to keep being a lifelong learner and just trying to figure out new things, right? So many times we're like, oh my God, nothing's working for this person. Then talk to others, right? Get some PD, read some books, try to figure out a strategy. We should never be stagnant in our learning. Um, so when we're planning metacognition skills, we need to have goals. We need to monitor them. We need to evaluate them. We need to adjust, right? Um, we have the BLT strategy from our book on page 81. Right? So these are the ways we could start thinking about thinking within ourselves and prepare our students to do the same and model this behavior for our students. All right, this week we're comparing metacognitive processes presented in the readings and the case studies as alternative approaches to reach IEP goals. I want you to use those Bloom's taxonomy things. I want you to right, think about the specific goals. Think about universal design for learning. Think about accommodations. What can we do? What alternative approaches can we have for these kids? Right? What do you find most helpful and realistic? So this is where you're going to use your own experience to say what has worked, right? Like I gave you the example of the kid who made his own book. It's in Cahoots, whatever. Give us a couple of your own things you've seen work. And this can be in the classroom, this can be in your own life. Both are equally important in this setting, in this discussion. Right? And then talk about your peers and how other teachers you work with have incorporated the strategies. What alternatives have you discovered in your career? How has your career changed? How have you done things differently now than you did in year one? As always, make sure we use APA formatting, citations. Our assignment this week is an assessment where you're going to talk a little bit about the same kind of thing where you're going to, the last question is an open-ended question about how you would approach one of these case studies. Okay. All right. Keep up the good work. And that's it. Thanks.